Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Libby Murray, and I'm excited to welcome you to another one of Lifetime's adoption webinars. Joining me tonight is another part of Lifetime's team, Kim King, who will help me interview our guests tonight and just draw out this very special adoption story for all of you to learn. So Kim, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thanks, Libby.
Great. For those of you who are new to webinars, or if you just need a refresher, if you joined us online, you can easily interact with us tonight by typing in the questions or chat box like many of you just did to let me know that you could hear us. And you can type in your questions. We'll be glad to share your questions or any feedback you have as we unfold Ashley and Gina's story tonight. And you know, if you have feedback or questions that might be better addressed one-on-one, I just want to let you know that, you know, we'll be happy to type with you here tonight, but another good way to follow up on that is to either email us or you can always call our office. And if you don't yet have a Lifetime coordinator, it's easy to just call the office and any of us will be happy to help you. The number for adoptive parents is 530-432-7373, and if you are thinking about adoption as a birth parent, you can dial our 24-hour hotline anytime. It's 1-800-923-6784, and you can always email Kim or me. That can be a good place to start, and we can let you know who might be better able to help you. And so my email is Libby, Libby, @lifetimeadoption.com, and we'll share Kim and my email again at the end of the call tonight too, so that you can follow up and make sure that all of your answers are received and that you get the information you need so that you can decide how adoption will be part of your future. I would like to welcome tonight, some of you can see on your screen already, we're very excited that Ashley and Gina have joined us. Ashley chose adoption for her son by placing him with Alan and Gina, I think nearly 9 years ago. But I just want to welcome them to our call. Gina and Ashley, are you there?
Yes.
Great.
Yes, I'm here.
Welcome. Thank you, ladies, so much. And we have some very sweet photos to show tonight. And as Gina and I were joking earlier, she looked for one of the two of them together, but they are always on the other side of the camera. So, but we can see how they share their lives together and just how this little boy has really just exploded these two families into one family. And I just want to explain, too, that if you're thinking about open adoption, the story that you may hear tonight, it's an example of the possibilities that open adoption can offer, and that not every birth mother, not every adoptive family will have the same ideas in mind when it comes to their adoption goals, and that with open adoption it really allows you to customize an adoption plan that's right for you, whether you're pregnant or you're thinking about adoption for a child, or if you are hoping to build your family through adoption. You know, what you hear tonight may not be something you'd ever even considered or heard of before, or you may know deep down that it's not something that is the way you'd want it to go, but that open adoption allows for so much individuality because every adoption is as unique as the people who come together through it. So feel free to type your questions in and we'll go ahead and get started here. So Ashley, I think a good place to start is just maybe to talk about how you came to adoption. I know that you and Kim were talking a moment ago before we aired, just about when you found out you were pregnant. Can you tell us a little bit about what was going on at the time you found out you were pregnant with Aiden, and what led you to adoption?
Well, Aiden has 3 older sisters, and the youngest of the 3 older girls, Malia and Aiden would have been 11 months apart. So for me, that would have been very challenging as I was only 19 years old. I knew my family wouldn't be very happy about another child. And, of course, my family is very supportive, so they've always been the ones to help me out. So when I found out I was pregnant in about March of 2003, I decided that I needed to do something and something responsible. So I thought about it for, I don't know, about a month and a half, and I opened up a phone book and I found Lifetime Adoption Agency is the first number that I found, so I called them and spoke with the lady and cried my way through all the questions she had and started the process there.
Did you know anyone at the time that had ever placed a child for adoption, that had ever chosen adoption while they were pregnant or after?
No, nobody. I knew nothing about adoption at all.
I have a quick question. You know, sometimes, you know, when you're pregnant and you're not sure if, you know, you should go ahead and parent that child in addition to children you're already parenting, maybe people look to relatives that might be willing to parent. Was that something you had considered?
I never myself thought of that, but my mother, actually, when I went into labor with Aiden, my mom had not sent off my paperwork, and that was the last thing she did before she called Lifetime to find out what she needed to do. She called all the women in my family asking, my brother and his wife, my aunt, extended family, did anybody want to take this baby before she called and made the arrangement. So I never thought about it, but my mom considered that.
Wow. Well, and I know that when we were talking yesterday that part of, looking back, it is a little bit humorous, but I'm sure at the time it was probably like, what? But let's talk a little bit about how you chose Alan and Gina. You know, did you look at profiles, or did you just see websites, or how did that go?
Lifetime sent me 16 adoptive family profiles with pictures and reference letters, and I started my search trying to come up with, I was going to come up with 3 possible choices, and I kind of went through and did like a, what I thought when I first looked at their picture, and I had piles from people I thought that, you know, couldn't do better than I could do, or that I thought looked like maybe had been in trouble before, or any possibility. And I had ridiculous piles of people, which is not fair because I didn't even ever look through their profiles, which is probably unfair. But Alan and Gina's was the first one I came across, and as soon as I seen the picture, I was like, this might be. So I sat it to the side, and I came across one more, and I only ended up with 2 profiles that I chose from in the end. And so I had my yes pile, my no pile, and my maybe pile, and my mom came home from work that evening, and she asked what my piles were, and I kind of explained, but I told her that I had picked one, and I wanted her to look through them, and I left, and when I came home that night, she asked if I had chosen one. I said, well, I chose 2, but I have a favorite one. And she said, well, I do too, so which one is it? And we both grabbed the same one. So we both had picked Alan and Gina. And then later, Aiden's biological father, he actually chose the same profile and didn't know that me and my mom had chosen that one.
That's amazing.
So, and someone from the audience asked, you know, what were your deciding factors in your choice? Was it really just sort of confirmed because your mom and his father had also, you know, been attracted to that profile too, or?
Yeah, I think that, but I think that for all of us was their reference letters from their family. Their family reminded us quite a bit of our family. And Gina was going to be a stay-at-home mom, and I remember her picture, like my mom made a fuss because her picture, one of her pictures was her at the counter, I don't know, making cookies or something. And my mom was like, she's like the perfect stay-at-home mom. So that's,
that's so sweet. Blush. I know, I'm making me cry. I know.
I know. So Gina, all this time that Ashley had been looking at your profile, when was it that you guys actually got in on the fact that she was interested?
We actually did, basically the night before he was born, we kind of went, through the whole lifetime process, did our monthly check-ins, kind of we were new to it, just kind of going with the flow, figuring out what we're going to do. And then in December, my younger sister was looking for a new car. My husband knows everything about cars, so we went to look at this car for her to see if it was a good deal. And we pull up next to the woman to check out the car, and the phone rings. And of course, I recognize it as a lifetime number, so I give it to Alan because I can't answer that. And he takes the call and he gets all the information, and it's like, okay, yes, and he's like, okay. And I'm just like, what? And he gets off the phone and he says, well, they have a birth mom that wants to talk to us. She's in Illinois, gave me all the basics, and he said, oh, and she's in labor. And so we were like sitting there with this woman in the car next to us. We're like, okay, let's go look at the car super fast. So we went, drove it around the block and then, went home. And so it was kind of crazy.
And so and part of that was just to backtrack because Ashley's mom at the time had held the paperwork back. And meanwhile, Ashley, you told me yesterday, which I thought it was just I could totally visualize this whole thing, and just knowing how we work at Lifetime, also knowing what's going on our side and thinking, well, she's probably just not ready for the next step. When she's ready to talk to a family, we'll get that packet back from her. She'll let us know. And meanwhile, you're thinking, well, I guess there's nothing else I need to do until I deliver.
Right.
I would like to say that I don't think that confusion happens, maybe not as much or very often, but it does happen. I mean, even if it wasn't anything to do with someone who was going to mail the packet, but the mail just got held up or something. But meanwhile, were you thinking, oh, Alan and Gina are probably lined up? I mean, were you a little bit surprised that they had no idea you were interested, or when did it dawn on you that, oh, Lifetime didn't even know that I sent this?
I had no clue that they didn't know anything about my paperwork until I went into labor and my mom told me. I guess, well, they had told me that after I picked out my families, I needed one for sure and a backup in case the first family had a baby. And they said that they would contact me after I sent all that in. But I didn't get a time frame, so I just assumed that, it took a while and I wouldn't hear anything back right away. And then busy with the 3 girls and being pregnant, I just kind of forgot about it or set it to the side. And then when it got closer, I'm like, I still haven't heard anything. Like, what do I do? And then I just kind of forgot about it again. And then when I woke up in the morning and was having contractions, my mom's like, are you sure? And I'm like, yes. And she's like, well, we have a problem. What's the problem? She's like, well, I didn't really send those papers in. I'm like, what do we do now? Because the baby's coming and I'm not keeping him. And my mom immediately called her work because the papers was at her work, and my best friend Jennifer and Christina, who worked with my mom, they got all the paperwork together, and my mom they brought it to my mom so that we could get it sent off, and all this stuff. Everything went crazy at that point, and my mom started calling family asking, is everybody sure? Nobody wants to keep this baby, and nobody was able to because of their own small children or for whatever reason. So it was all kind of crazy. But I didn't know anything until I was in labor and my mom told me.
That's funny. And
she'd done it in fear that I would change my mind, and she didn't want to hurt an adoptive family's feelings is why she done that.
So, I know that that's something that both sides think about, because I work with the women when they're just thinking about adoption. I've worked with them when they've chosen families, and then I've also worked with the adoptive parents, and every party involved thinks about that reality of what if she has a change of heart. And had that gone through your head? Were you thinking, am I sure I can go through with this? Or because I know that even when you feel that that's the right decision, it doesn't mean just because you because you want to do it that it actually feels like it's an easy decision. Did you ever have concerns, or did you ever think, well, is there a chance that I could actually do this and change my mind and parent this baby too? Or
I think that for me, because I knew right away that I was already struggling with my girls, that it was going to be a very hard struggle for me. I pretty much put it in my mind and kind of kept telling myself this, so I started believing it that, for whatever reason, I was 19 and was carrying my fourth child, that I was going to make a birth or an adoptive mother happy. I was going to be able to give her something that she could not. And so I kind of kept that in my head and in my heart to be able to keep myself going with it. And I think that, even when I delivered him and after he was born and having the nurses keep him out of the room, I knew not to let myself bond with him by myself, feeding him or anything like that. So I think that keeping that in my head made it a lot easier for me. So I don't think that, because I knew I was already struggling, I really didn't have any doubts. I knew it would be hard after he was born and after they left with him, but I don't think I ever actually doubted my decision.
And did you know, I guess you would have known through their profile that Alan and Gina didn't have children yet, so they were going to be first-time parents, whereas you were sort of you were a practiced mom already.
Right. Well, actually, Alan already had kids, so that was something, too, that kind of stuck out to us. Alan does have children, so that kind of stuck out to us, too.
Yeah, he has 2 older kids from his first marriage.
That's right. I remember that now from your profile. So the two of you come together. Ashley's in labor. Did you talk on the phone, or did you just go to the hospital?
What we did is, after Lifetime contacted us and the whole car thing, we came back home. We called into Lifetime, got all the information, double-checked everything, and then they said they would contact Ashley, and that Ashley or her, that basically would call us. And it actually ended up being Sean, Ashley's mom, who called us and got on the phone, kind of gave us the details, and we kind of made that connection. And we asked them, do you want us to come up there? Do you want us to wait? What would you like us to do? And we heard Sean, call over her shoulder to Ashley and ask Ashley if she wanted us there, and she said yes. And I basically finished up the call and came downstairs, and Alan had us half-packed.
And at that point, my contractions were like 4 to 6 minutes apart, so I'm like, they better hurry.
Did you want them, how involved did you want them at the hospital if they were able to get there in time?
At that point, I don't think that I even was thinking about that. I was just thinking that this baby's going to be born and they're not going to be here. What am I supposed to do? But I don't think that I really even thought about their involvement. Even once they got to the hospital, I never really thought about it, and it just kind of, everything just happened, and they were there, and I was happy that they were both in the room when Aiden was born.
I think even your mom had said at some point that your labors are really short, and chances of us making it there were pretty slim, but we were still on our way.
Right.
So I think we kind of all went into it with the expectation that by the time we got there, he would already have been born.
Right.
Right.
But he's stubborn. He had different plans.
Well, and Ashley, before we opened up our broadcast tonight, you were sharing that you had made specific wishes noted in your chart as to that bonding that you were concerned about. I think it's helpful if you could share, what you shared with us before our conversation started tonight about, how you definitely wanted any time when the baby would be in the room with you, you wanted the adoptive family there as well.
Yes. That was, the hospital that I went to didn't have much experience with adoption, so we were just kind of flying by with everything, trying to make everything work out the way that it should go. And I had to fill out a paper that said my wishes, what I did want, what I didn't want, how much contact with the adoptive parents I wanted, and things like that. And basically, my wishes as to the adoptive parents were, I didn't have any limits, I was open to whatever. But as far as Aiden went, once he was born, I did not want them bringing him into my room for feedings or diaper changes or anything like that unless they were present. And I was okay with holding them and everything once they were there, but for me to be alone with him, I didn't want that chance to bond with him. And I actually had a nurse who had just came on the shift and wasn't familiar with us. She did not check my chart before she came in. She wheeled the baby in his little bassinet and told me that it was time for a feeding. And I'm sure I was very rude about it, but I just asked her to please take the baby out of my room, and she basically said that the baby needed fed and that I needed to do that, you know, they encourage the moms to do these things, and I basically yelled at her and said, get him out of my room now. His parents aren't here. And, of course, I got a crazy look, and she leaves. And later she ended up sending me, I believe, cards and a card and flowers apologizing, and came in and personally apologized and gave me her phone number and told me that if I ever needed to talk or anything that I could call her and that she was very sorry.
Yes.
And so I brought up a little bit ago the photo, Ashley, of you and Aiden and your mom. So this was right before you left the hospital. I think Gina can see this. And so he's born. How much time, especially since you guys had just gotten to even find out about each other, did you guys spend a lot of time with each other and Aiden in the room, or you know, how did that go those couple days you were in the hospital?
For us, you go ahead. You answer first.
Well, so my contractions went on into the afternoon while Alan and Gina were traveling through a snowstorm, and then they just stopped. And so I think they arrived at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and nothing was happening. So I'm feeling like, uh-oh, they just drove here, and nothing's happening now. I don't know what to do. And I think he was actually like 2 weeks before his due date or something like that. So Alan and Gina stayed in the room with us for, I'm going to say, about an hour, hour and a half, and then I decided to rest, and they went down to the waiting room. So we spent about that much time together. And then after he was born, they were pretty much there most of the time. And they did, you know, they took him to dress him, and they did the pictures with him and all those things. And we talked a lot. I had a lot of friends and family that were very supportive that came and sat with us, and we all kind of hung out. And then once we left the hospital, we actually had, after the court appearance for the signing over my rights, we actually went to lunch that afternoon, half of my family, and I think a couple friends before they left to go back to Oklahoma. So we spent a lot of time together.
We did, and understanding what Ashley was going through and her decisions she was making in that, and being in the hospital, of course, just having given birth, we also made sure she had time for herself too. So we would go and eat, or we would go and went back to the hotel, and you know, we weren't there all the time. I don't know how to explain that. I guess to give her time for herself too.
Right.
You know, I think that's an important boundary, or an important thing to do.
Right. Well, and you know, what I always encourage women to do is, because when you're choosing adoption, you get a say over how it goes at the hospital. And Ashley was firm on this is what's right for me. I want them as the primary caregivers during this time. But you know, and I'm going to try and bring up another photo here, but I mean, I know from your story, and obviously these pictures that are coming too, is that you spent time holding Aiden and even feeding him, but for you set that boundary of, but I want Alan and Gina there when that happens. Did you bring your daughters in at that time? You know, did they understand what was going on with this new baby that was coming?
They were all pretty much, I believe, under the age of 3. So I think like my oldest. Yeah, and my youngest of the 3 girls, she actually broke out in chicken pox like 2 hours after I went into the hospital. So I don't think that the girls ever even got to come to the hospital or went to dinner with us or lunch with us. They stayed with family and friends due to that reason. So I don't think that they ever actually got to see him until our first visit the next year in July.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that was the first time when we met when they got to meet him was in July.
Mm-hmm. What was it like, you know, when you guys, you know, Gina, when you arrived and you all got to be in the same room for the first time? What was that like from each of your point of view?
It's just, I think to sum it up, when Ashley's mom, called and we answered the phone at the house, she said, "This is the most strange and awkward phone call I've ever had to make." And I think, and then she kind of laughed about it. And I think that kind of sums up that initial meeting experience. It's like, you know what's going on, you know what you're there for. It's life-changing. Do you be happy? Are you sad? Are you, I mean, it's just, it's a mix of crazy emotions, and you're meeting these people, and it's kind of crazy.
But at the same time, when you look back, because we've had a lot of years in between then and now, and you know, when you look back on that time, is where you're at today anywhere close to what you imagined could have happened from those first few days of meeting each other?
I think it's evolved to just be so much more than even I thought it would be. It's just, I don't know, it's just kind of our life. I mean, that doesn't diminish it at all, that it just kind of is kind of a normal for us. So I don't know. I knew that I wanted to be in contact with them after Aiden was born and we spent time with them, but I don't know that I knew this is what it would become. Like, this is how it would evolve, and, you know, it's like any other family relationship. You kind of just, you know, you let things happen.
Right. So Ashley, for instance, when you were pregnant and you knew, okay, well, I can choose these parents, did you have any idea, like, I hope that they'll keep in touch with me and share updates, or what was that? What did that look like to you before you even spoke to them?
Well, when I first called Lifetime, I basically called thinking I was just going to give my baby up for adoption and that was going to be the end of it. And for me, I'm thinking to myself, okay, so when this kid turns 18, is he going to try to find us? Is he going to wonder about his sisters, you know? But then after speaking with them and they, you know, told me the open adoption choice and things like that, then I'm like, okay, well, as a mother, because I already have 3 kids, like, I always kind of have this feeling like, how do parents just kind of walk away from their children, whether it be, you know, just the biological parents, or you give your child up for adoption and that's the end of it. And for me, I knew I wouldn't be able to handle something like that. I wouldn't be able to go day by day not knowing what was going on in his life at all, you know, at least pictures or something. So I think that, you know, during our first actual visit with Gina and Alan, when they came to the room and, you know, she had told us how they were going to have a website for Aiden with pictures and doctor visit updates and things like that, that pretty much settled my uneasiness for that.
Wow. And so, Gina, did you, because a lot of parents, well, I would say actually both sides, when I've worked with people on both sides of coming together in the middle for adoption, it's hard to know how you want to keep in touch with someone that you don't even know yet.
Right.
What did you and Alan think about open adoption before you even knew Ashley? And you know, when she talked about, well, I'd like to keep in touch, was that something you guys already felt comfortable doing, or were you just sort of thinking, oh, I guess we'll see how this goes, or?
Well, we did our initial paperwork through Lifetime, you know, and after talking through, you know, Alan and I talking through it, we decided that we really felt comfortable with, you know, letters and phone calls and photos. The visiting part, we weren't so sure on, so we knew we could commit to what we knew we could do. And regardless of what the situation is, we knew we could do those things. And so we kind of went into it thinking that. And I can remember, like, that first night, and maybe even the day after when he was born, talking something about being on the computer, like Ashley being on the computer or whatever. And I, for my job, used to do website development for event planning. And it just like, I asked Ellen, I was like, I wonder if she's like a website. She's on the computer. That would be a really easy thing to do.
Mm.
And it just kind of started from there. It's like, that'd be a really quick way to get information out there, to get photos out there. She can look anytime. She doesn't have to wait every 6 months, 12 months, whatever, for pictures.
Mm-hmm.
It could just be that. And then over the course of the next days, I mean, he was only in the hospital for 2 days before they were released. That evolved to, I love these people. I don't not want to ever see them again.
Mm.
Now these people are really cool.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it just kind of was this, I don't know, there just was a connection beyond how Aiden brought us together.
Mm-hmm. And so then at that point, when you were still together after his birth, did you guys talk about getting together in the future, or did you just think, well, you know, we'll be in touch? Or how did you leave things when you actually went to your hometown? Because, Gina, you were from Oklahoma and Ashley was from Illinois, right?
Right. And I think what we said is not to necessarily commit to anything, but what we said is, you know, from time to time, Alan does have to travel to Chicago for business. Mm-hmm. So maybe sometime if it were to work out or whatever. Like, I think we were pretty vague about it, but letting her know that, you know, that kind of that door was open if it was something she wanted to do as well.
Mm-hmm. And so then did you guys have a visit again shortly thereafter, or how long was it until you actually saw each other again? Or let's actually even put some in between there. When you got home, how did you start keeping in touch? And was it all the time, or was it kind of sporadic? Or
what do you think, Ash? I mean, I think it was like the website and emails, and there were phone calls, and I mean, it pretty much was, I don't know, within a few weeks of being home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think right at the beginning, I did have a couple days right after leaving the hospital. I had a couple of rough days where I was just really emotional, and I think it was more the pregnancy hormones than anything, because I didn't feel bad about my decision or regret it or anything. But I think that following the website, when she let us know how to get to that and what she would be putting on there and things like that, I think I followed that, and I may have, you know, sent some comments or some emails, but at that point I was thinking to myself, like, I kind of felt like I was intruding, so I didn't say too much at first. I kind of just stayed back and just kind of watched what she had to put up and things like that, and then me and my mom both started commenting, and it just kind of went from there. And then we had our first visit. He was born in December of 2003, and we had our first visit in July of 2004.
Okay. And so, meanwhile, you guys, I know, Ashley, your family was very supportive. And Gina, on the other side, did you ever have people saying, what, you're keeping in touch with her? You're going to go see her? What is that about? I mean, how did you handle questions from people that didn't really understand that this was just a personal relationship? This wasn't like you're in touch with every single woman who had viewed your profile.
Right. I think that, you know, my family trusted, and both our families trusted us to make those decisions. Mm-hmm. I think there was never anything that was negative that was said. It's more like, oh, we're going to see Ashley, and it's like, oh, that'll be nice kind of thing, you know, like being pleasant about it. But I think just not knowing what to say. Mm-hmm. And I think, you know, all these years later now, everybody sees this relationship and what it is, and it's like no big deal to anybody. But I think it was kind of figuring out how it was going to be in our family, like what was going to happen and what was the next step. I think everybody kind of was, you know, nervous at first.
Well, and that, when we were talking yesterday, you said you have at least one thing that you think all people should know or realize or think about before they adopt. You told me, do what you're going to say. What does that mean to you?
I think it was just that. It's like committing to what we knew we could do. We knew that no matter what the situation, that we could commit to doing letters and pictures and even phone calls. Like, that is something that we committed to do till he was 18. I think that, you know, you hear horror stories all the time. Oh, we'll do this, we'll do that, and then, you know, the birth mother loses contact or the adoptive family loses contact. I think it's just, You're building a relationship that is for the rest of your life. And it doesn't mean that that person has to be your best friend or that they have to live by you or you have to see them all the time. But that connection is important, I believe.
Ashley, how do you feel about that? Did you ever have any concerns? Well, what if they say they're going to share photos and updates, but then they just go away?
Like I said, I don't think I really even thought anything like that through much until after he was born, and I think from there, like, our relationship was, like, immediate, so I didn't feel like they were going to not do anything that they told me that they would. I don't think I ever really
have to.
Yeah.
I think
ours have to wonder that.
Right, and ours is a little bit different in that there wasn't an initial match, and we had a few months to kind of exchange information, get to know each other, kind of set plans. I mean, it was kind of pre-instant.
Well, and I think a good word in there would be trust.
Right.
For both of you, did you feel a little bit like, wow, you know, this is all happening so fast, and I totally trust them?
Right. And you do, and it feels overwhelming because it's like, oh, my God, she's trusting me with her child. You know what I mean? And I think it's the opposite, but the same reaction from her. It requires an immense amount of trust.
And honoring that commitment. I was thinking as we were talking about this yesterday that just even having a whole topic on just what does it mean to have integrity in adoption, because unfortunately there are people that will just say things, but they don't really mean them. And it leads to a lot. I can only imagine how much harder it would have been for you, Ashley, if you'd left and then felt like you were always having to beg them for updates.
Yeah, that definitely would have been hard for me. I think a lot of that, too, though, would have been more, not so much just for myself, but for my girls. Like, I did not want them to grow up and not know anything. So for my girls, it's been like something that's completely natural for them. They know how, they know why, and they've asked questions, and I've explained. So if I didn't have that to tell them, that would be the most heartbreaking for me.
And so, and we talked some. I mean, were there other benefits of open adoption that stood out for you guys as far as, you know, not only did Ashley get to know, okay, where's my baby going and how is he doing? You know, through these years, have there been things that it's just been maybe even convenient that you guys are in touch, like
today?
Yes.
What happened today?
Today, Ashley was coming up. She attended a job fair, and so I had her daughter, her youngest daughter, Cabela, at my house. Her and Ellie are like inseparable. And I get a call from the school about 10 minutes before my 5-year-old, before the school bus was supposed to come, that Aiden's missed the school bus because he was helping his teacher. And I need to come pick him up at the school. But it's like 10 minutes before the bus gets home that Owen's on, my 5-year-old. It's like, okay, I can't leave until Owen gets here, but yet they want me at the school. So I called Ashley. I was like, oh, you're on your way, right? She said, yeah. I was like, you still get Aiden for me. You know, it's like... It worked out.
Well, so let's talk about that. I mean, here's the photo I just brought up here is from your first meeting after the December when Aiden was born, and these are Ashley's girls that she had at the time. And now I'm sure everyone here in the audience heard you say, "What? She picked him up from school? Like you guys live in the same town now?" You know, what is that like? And now that Aiden, he's going to be 9 this year.
Right.
Yep. So, and then also, I mean, just for all of you to know, too, that Alan and Gina went on to adopt 2 more children, and that Ashley went on to have 2 more babies. So now you guys have all of these kids.
Got a whole bunch of kids.
You're friends with each other. Does it ever get blurry? How do you guys handle questions not only from your kids, but maybe even from others about your roles in each child's life? And how do you handle just the questions about who is who and who does what? And
I think, like when we spoke yesterday, that it isn't generally something that Ashley and I disclose to people. It's like, you know, if the three of us are out, it's not like, I'm his adoptive mom, this is his birth mom, and this is our child.
Mm-hmm.
People get to know kind of us before they get to know the relationship. So when they find that out, they already know our relationship. So I guess they're more comfortable, so it doesn't come as such a surprise, or it doesn't seem weird or whatever. They just know us.
Right. And so how about as Aiden's grown up, or even just as you guys have met, and Ashley already had children that were, you know, old enough to start understanding things, and then certainly now that he's older, and Gina, your youngest are 4 and 5, is that right?
Yes.
So everybody's sort of at this age now where they don't probably get everything, but they understand some, I think.
Right.
And what I love here, I just brought up this photo. Now this is Alan and Ashley's youngest daughter at the time when Aiden was just a few months old, right?
Yeah, he would have been about 6 months old, and she would have been about almost, what, a year and a half.
Yeah.
And I love this because she's just chilling on his lap like she's known him forever.
With Mountain Dew.
My
great parenting skills.
You know, and he's just sitting there. I mean, let's talk a little bit, too, about him. But first, I want to go back to, you have these kids, and so Aiden knows, you know, does he call you Ashley? Does he have a nickname for you?
No, he calls me Ashley or Turd Face or Monkey Butt or whatever he decides for the day.
He does. He's learned how to text on my phone, so he's always texting her and texting her jokes, texting her funny names. And, so, he's an 8-year-old boy.
Yeah.
Sure is.
And so, and he knows, does he know that your kids are his siblings?
He does, but and they all fight, even Ellie and Owen also, they all just fight like they're brothers and sisters, but it never, like, comes up like, hey, this is my sister, or, like, they're never really put in a position where they have to let that be known, but definitely for my kids, they all completely know and understand everything. My youngest is 4, and she understands what she can for her age, so they all know. But they definitely all act like brothers and sisters and fight and argue and get along, and they're best friends. And
because I guess I can just call these out. I've heard the fears of, you know, from both sides, where adoptive parents, they're thinking, well, if I discipline my child, are they going to say, well, you're not my mom, I'm going to go be with my mom? You know, does that ever happen, and is it something that threatens you, Gina, or that ever confuses you, Ashley? I mean, does that ever?
It doesn't. I mean, Aiden will, you know, he'll be trying to sit here and play his video game, and Owen and Ellie are climbing all over him, and he'll say, I want to go to Ashley's. And it's like, okay, well, there's 5 of them over there, and there's only 2 here. And it's like, are you sure you want to go? I don't know. You know. So, it's like, but he, you know, he'll bug me for, can I go? And it's like, yes, you can go over. Then he'll go over there and, you know, this happened or that happened, or, you know. I think it's just real life. It isn't this glorified version. So
right.
I think he realizes, like, hey, it's just, you know.
Well, and I was thinking, as you were telling me that, I was even thinking that could be something that even if you guys were just lifelong girlfriends and you each had kids, I mean, I remember my mom's best friend always let her kids do way more than my mom let us do. You know, and there was no adoption issue happening within that. So that really...
No, and I think that's, like, we trust each other as parents. I trust her with all my kids, and I know she trusts me with hers. It's like there's just that, you know, it's trust.
And for all the kids, I mean, there's at least 10 to 12 times a week. It's, well, we want to go to Gina's, or Ellie, Owen, or Aiden, or all 3 of them want to come to my house, and it's just like, oh, you know, I'll take you over there.
Yeah.
You know, we don't care.
Well, and I just want to remind everyone, because we have some questions coming in, like, wait a minute, you know, what? Like, there's all this blending of who takes care of who, and this is a very unique open adoption. And I think probably both of you would agree that it's rare that this much openness and involvement happens. Mostly, I think, because usually people don't even live in the same town. So that probably has increased your relationship and made it grow even faster, that you guys now live in the same area on purpose. But I just want to point out, this is one story. Every adoption is so different, and that this is what has worked for them, and that they're just, like Gina said at the beginning of our call, I just loved how you said, well, it's just like any relationship. We just sort of take it day by day. Right. Has there ever been any conflict or anything that's come up that you felt like, well, we need to kind of backpedal and reestablish some clarity? Has anything ever even been close to coming up like that, or?
I don't think so, no.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think we're, like the analogy of being like lifelong friends is kind of a good one, because it's like, I do something that upsets her, she tells me. If she does something that upsets me, I tell her. It's like, and I think we kind of know each other, know when, like, okay, she's busy focusing on this or whatever. Like, I think it's just that. I mean, it's so hard to explain, but it just is like, it's just such a natural relationship. Like, it just feels, in some ways, effortless.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you guys have so much in common. I mean, you both have very relaxed, laid-back personalities. You're both busy moms. When Ashley chose you to be the parent she selected, she liked the lifestyle that you had to offer. She liked that you were going to be a stay-at-home mom, and you were the mom she wanted for her son. So I think that there were already so many indicators that led to a positive relationship between the two of you before you even met. I'm curious to know a little bit more about, Gina, I don't know if Alan shared much about his feelings as you guys embarked upon an open adoption where you knew you were going to get to know a birth mom and most likely send letters and photos afterward. What were his thoughts, or did he have any concerns? I think there are probably some husbands out there who are wondering, well, how did he feel about all this?
I think it's, like, for Alan, it was, he kind of trusted me because I had done a lot of the research and we had brought forth the information, and we talked about it before we even decided what we were going to do. That's kind of the nature of who we are. We kind of like go through and analyze everything. And so I think he trusted what I felt from that. Adoption was a completely new thing to him. Nobody in his family. He had no experience, no reference point, and so in some ways just kind of, like he trusted me. My only
that word, trust.
I know. My only experience was my grandmother. My grandmother was adopted as a child during the Depression, didn't know any of her, never had any of her information, and till the day she died, it haunted her. And I always remember that. But if nothing else, I wanted Aiden to be able to have that access to information. Because I think the not knowing is worse. On both
sides. Yes, I agree. We get calls on our hotline all the time from adoptees who, I mean, you put it perfectly, Gina, they sound haunted, that they have no information. They don't know their own story.
No, my grandmother had a scrap of paper that had her mom's name, her first name, or I think her first name and her maiden name, and the address where my grandmother was born. That's all she had. And I just think that's like, there's a whole other part of her entire history out there. And it's like, I didn't ever want that. And, if nothing else, even if Ashley and I, it's like we hadn't connected or whatever, but we still had that contact. Aiden's at the age where he has questions, and I always wanted that, but if he had questions, he could just ask them. Not, oh, well, we're going to have to wait another, 9 years.
Yeah.
Well, and it's like you said earlier, it's not a glorified thing. It's reality.
Right.
You want to go over there and be with all those sisters? Be my guest.
The fact of the matter is that sometimes her house is more fun than mine. Sometimes my house is more fun. It just,
Just like anyone, yeah.
I mean, and is he at an age yet where he's actually starting to ask questions or wanting to talk to Ashley about, why did this happen, or?
He actually, like, torments me on it, like, purposely. He'll, like, randomly say something like, you're my other mom, and it's just like, okay. What am I supposed to say to that? Or he'll ask, like, well, how come you're my other mom? And he knows that when he says that, I always tell him, you need to talk to your mom and dad about that or whatever. So now it's to the point where it's almost like he does it on purpose, like to torment me, because he knows that I'm going to tell him to talk to his mom and dad. But for them, if he says something, it's like Gina's like, okay, well, I'll explain. And then when she tries, he just runs off. He's more worried about video games, so he knows that he doesn't care to know the details or old enough to understand them.
I think there's a certain comfort level. Like, he just doesn't, like, it's been his story his whole life, so he knows. And, like, he'll ask me a question, and I'll, like, okay, let me think about that, and I'll start to answer him, and he's just like, can I finish watching my movie? Like, oh, okay. I mean, he truly is an 8-year-old boy. He knows his story and he understands it, but it's in some ways completely irrelevant to him at this point.
Right.
Does he realize that he's the link between so many people, like, knowing each other and having this amazing relationship between the two of your families? Do you think he knows that he's the link there?
I don't know if he, like, I know he knows the relationship, but I know what you mean. I don't know if he knows that he had such a pivotal role in all that. And part of it's because of his age,
Right.
Like, I think he'll understand more the older he gets. More things will make sense to him. But, right now it's video games and annoying his brother and sister. And
So I brought up a picture here from 2005. Now, this is Ashley's grandpa.
Yeah.
And Alan and Aiden. So, I mean, it's so unique, Ashley, that your whole family is just involved with them.
Oh, yeah.
What a treasure, I think, that when that's possible, that relationship can be there too. Gina, what, do your kids call them Grandpa? Do they?
They do.
Do they have nicknames?
Like Sean is Grandma Sean. She's Grandma Sean to all the kids. I think she's probably Grandma Sean to, like, more kids than she actually is actual grandma too. But.
So, and that's a good point too, is because you have Owen and Ellie, and now they have open adoptions as far as you knew their birth parents, but you don't maintain a lot of contact like you have with Ashley, right?
No, we don't. Like with Owens, it's contact based on her contacting us, and Ellie's because it was California, there's the exchange of information, but we don't have any direct contact with her either.
Okay, and was that those women's choices?
With Owen, actually with both of them, it was to some degree. With Owens, it was her choice. That's what she wanted. We let her know that the door was always open, and this is the relationship we had with Ashley. With Ellie's birth mom, it was a little bit different story. There was some substance abuse, some legal issues. We haven't really had any contact with her, but we have. When I was with her in the hospital, because I was there when Ellie was born also, it basically was, we're open to being in contact with you, but everybody needs to be in a healthy place. And even she was the one that said, she even said that, that she wanted to be in a better place. And, she checked herself out of the hospital, I don't know, a couple hours after Ellie was born, and that was it.
Right. So you have Aiden, who has a wide open, very open adoption, and then you have Owen and Ellie, who don't have nearly the amount of contact or involvement. So how do they fit in with Ashley and her family?
Just like Aiden does.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think when we called Ashley and her mom and told her about Owen, her mom was like, oh, that's grandbaby number, whatever the number was at that time. It's just, even from the first visit we went, here is, this child that's 6 months old, and we've met a few of their family, but not everybody, and now we're coming there to their family reunion, family from all over the place that's coming there. and everybody was just wonderful. You know, people had questions, people, I think, just really being with us and interacting with us. I think it's just kind of, I don't know.
So was that ever a concern of yours, Gina? Because what I hear from some adoptive parents is, well, we want an adoption exactly like our son's because we don't want to have questions on, well, why is his like this and mine is like that? Did that ever go through your minds?
We did. When we met with Owen's birth mom, she did ask us that question. Like, knowing that she wanted a completely closed adoption, that, I guess, open with information but no contact, that how would we explain that to him? And we explained it, you know, that knowing what we knew of Ashley's family, knowing what I know of my family and Alan's family, it was going to be a partnership. Right? We wanted her, if she ever felt comfortable contacting us, we would want to have that relationship with her, but we respected that she did it.
Right. So, I mean, I love hearing that because I hear that so often, is just that one child's birth family embraces the other children within that adoptive family. And, I mean, to me, I hear your story, and it's just, I almost think sometimes does it get confusing on how do you ever forget how you actually know each other, or does it just seem like this is just how it's been?
It's normal.
Yeah, like I had said yesterday, like, or maybe even earlier today, I can't remember. To me, it's like, Alan and I were talking about this weekend about how I don't, like, Ashley's Aiden's birth mother, but that's not the role she has in our life. Like, that's not who I think of her as. She's just a part of our family. And it's not that I forget that, because I know that, but it's such a minimal part of what our relationship is.
Yeah, Ashley, I don't know how this will make you feel, but I know you know your mom was going to come to our webinar. So we have Grandma Shawn. She typed in a very sweet comment, and she said it was okay if I read it. She said, as Aiden's grandma, I know how hard it was for me to let him go, but after all this time, we couldn't have made a better decision for us, Ashley and Aiden. It doesn't feel like she gave him away. She gave him a very special gift. She gave a very special gift to two very special people who allow us to be a huge part of his life. Our lives may be unique to many, but it's normal to us.
I think that's absolutely true. It is kind of our normal.
You know what?
And I like that too. Like, I feel like, okay, I have a child, but we gained so much more. You know, it's like just so much more.
And so, Ashley, I know part of what you and I got connected over was because you posted on our Facebook celebrating that you had graduated your schooling, and actually it had one of the scholarships to the Lifetime Foundation. Is that right?
Yes.
So, you know, back when you were 19 and you had 3 kids, and then you gave birth to Aiden, I mean, did you have goals for your life then? You know, or did that kind of come later that you thought, well, now this is what I want to do. This is how I want, you know, to focus my life. Or
actually, when I was pregnant with Aiden, I had quit school whenever my oldest daughter was, I don't know, 6 or 8 months. She had gotten sick, and I quit school to focus on her and her health. So when I was pregnant with Aiden, I was actually doing GED classes, and I tested and fell a couple points short in the math section. And at that point, I just kind of was like, whatever, I gave up. And my parents owned a business, so I worked for them and things like that. And when I moved to Oklahoma last year, I was just kind of basically set on I needed to figure something out in my life. I had gotten married, and I was able to stay at home with my kids and things like that. And when that didn't really go so well, when me and the kids moved here, I decided it was time to do something not only for myself to be able to do better for me and my kids, but to also show my kids that, you know, they can do anything that they want to do, that they don't have to, you know, struggle or whatever. So I started looking, and I actually enrolled into a school last year and found out it was going to be way more than I could afford to handle financially. So I went back to Illinois after moving here. I moved back to Illinois. I finished my GED in October of 2011 and finished up some things, and then me and the kids moved back here in August. I started out in January taking some college classes, going to school for an X-ray tech, and then when I moved here, I found out about a different program that wasn't quite as long that I could get through quickly and be able to work with either elderly people or sick people in the hospital. So it was I kind of have a heart for helping people.
Yeah.
So I decided to go ahead and do that, and Gina helped me through a bunch of it, getting it all set up and finding it and all those things. And I actually came across the scholarship program because on my 21st birthday, when Aiden was 2, I got a tattoo of his name and a heart and wings and stuff. And I was kind of wanting to change it up, and I've kind of searched several times looking for like an adoption symbol of some sort to add to it. So I was like, I haven't found anything that actually represents adoption, so I decided to look on Lifetime to see if you guys had some kind of a symbol or something on your page or something that, I could use that kind of combines Lifetime and Aiden all in the adoption and everything all in one. And I came across the birth mother page when I started reading through it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be really helpful. So I contacted Lifetime. I spoke to somebody, and I had to write it was supposed to be a 500-word essay, and I ended up with like 2,900-word essay. And sent it in, and almost immediately got confirmation back that I was going to be granted a scholarship.
And so when did you complete that course?
In September. I started September 3rd, and I graduated September 28th.
Oh wow, that's fast.
And I was state certified. Like the second week of October, I was state certified.
Well, and I'm just. Anytime someone sets a goal for themselves and just follows it through like that, I just want to congratulate you, Ashley, because that's remarkable. And I also think how special is that Gina was there to help you coordinate that and to just help you pursue your goals. I just think it's such a blessing, such a remarkable relationship that you can not only be there for each other because of Aiden, but just because you care about each other personally.
Right.
I love hearing that. And I mean, where do you guys see your relationship in the future?
I think probably more of the same.
Yeah. I brought up here, this is the most recent family portrait for Gina and your family of 5. Right. And then I know that you had sent me, I love this picture of your 3 kiddos, Gina.
Aww.
Yes, they're actually nice to each other.
For anyone who's curious, too, so Gina adopted through Lifetime twice, and Owen was a little surprised in the middle from a different source, too. This is precious, and it's hard to believe because I remember working with you, Gina. It doesn't seem like it was already 4 years ago that Ellie was born.
No. Oh, she's 4 going on 14 now. It seems like it's gone so fast.
And then I love this photo you sent over of Ashley and her 5. I'm bringing this up here, too.
And we just did this last week.
You did? Oh, cool.
That is so cool. I love it.
Is there anything, because I feel like we could probably even go on and on and on. We've had a lot of people with questions. I know one question that came in, and we could kind of backpedal here a little bit. Ashley, when women choose adoption, they can name their baby, but likewise the adoptive parents can also change that name when it's a final birth certificate. And did you guys collaborate on a name, or did one of you choose it and then you just went with it, or how did that go when you named Aiden?
That was actually something that came up at the hospital when they had arrived in conversation. My mom ended up with all the questions, and that was one thing that she had asked, how does, we didn't really know how that worked at all, and I hadn't even considered it. But Gina said that they had already had a name, and when they told us, like, we didn't even have anything to say. We loved the name, so we were fine with it.
Mm.
So, and it was their baby, so, I probably wouldn't even have felt comfortable coming up with a name.
Mm-hmm.
I probably would have came up with Alan Jr.
Oh.
I wouldn't even have been able to come up with anything, so
Yeah.
I was glad that they already had that, and that name means something to them, so we were happy with it.
So he's tied in with them as well.
Right.
That's precious, and I love. What I keep hearing, the pattern here is just that you're just open to communicating with each other. That it's not thinking, what are they thinking, but never asking, and then kind of worrying about that and how it goes. But it was just more like, let's get it out there. Let's talk about this, and everything from naming him to that first visit and keeping in touch, and then all the way to now with you living so close by. Just all of it. To me, when I heard your story yesterday and then talking with you tonight, is just such a reminder to me. It's almost even a good model for just a good relationship in general, not just even with open adoption, but just to have a healthy, pure friendship, to have a loving relationship that that is positive for everyone. I thank you guys for sharing that so much. Is there anything that's on your heart that you really want to make sure you share with our audience tonight, or anything that you ever hear that you feel like, I really want to make sure I set this straight? Either of you have anything that you want to make sure you leave us with?
I think for me, I had a lady who had commented on one of my posts that I put on Lifetime about my scholarship and things like that. And like Gina said earlier about, just being honest and do what you say you're going to do. Just make sure, if this is the route that you choose to take, make sure that you follow through with what you're going to say. As, the birth moms have a heart too, and we try to accommodate the adoptive parents, I think, but I think it also needs to come in return. So if things are said and things are promised, I think you should follow through with that, as it's going to make your relationship better, not just for you, but for the child too, because eventually you're going to need that when the child gets older. And I wouldn't know how to take it if, Aiden got older and, me and Gina weren't the way we were. He got older and was like, well, how come you guys don't really talk, or you don't, necessarily get along, or, never kept in contact or whatever. I think that that's something that needs to be in some way, whether it's just letters or pictures or emails or visits or moving to the hometown to be by them, something needs to happen, and you need to be open and honest and trustworthy in both directions.
I think that's such a good observation, Ashley, and I know that I often encourage families, whenever they have concerns about keeping in touch, or whenever they don't make it a priority to follow through on that commitment, I just say, someday, and it could even be if your child's birth parent doesn't want to stay in touch, that's okay too, but someday your child's going to have questions, and are you going to say, well, we were open, but she's just not ready yet, and that's okay, we're here when she's ready? Or are you going to say, we were too scared, so we shut her out?
Right.
Because your openness, Gina, you and Alan, just even having that availability, that even though all three of your adoptions are different, that you can say, well, we care about each of your families and where you started, that but each relationship is just different, and this is how it is with Ashley. And someday, if there's ever a change in the other relationship, that we're available and we're open to that. I think that says a lot to your kids, regardless of what the actual relationship ever results to. Gina, is there anything on your heart that you want to make sure you share tonight?
I think that, to Ashley's point, is understand what your comfort level is, because, I mean, even if you're not in contact, you don't have the relationship we do. Like I said before, there still is that lifelong connection that you have with your child's birth mother. Whether you know, she gives birth, you take the baby, and you never hear from her again. There still is that connection. And so really understanding and asking and being honest with yourself about what you want that to be long term. You know, I mean, I know I have a friend who also adopted through Lifetime, and they waited a very long time. They went into it wanting very limited contact, if any. And now their son is almost 4, and they have a completely open relationship. And it just is kind of the nature of what happens. You know, it's kind of, that's where they evolve to.
Right. I mean, do you guys ever, when you're quiet or when you're reflecting back on things, I've heard from a lot of adoptive families and birth families that just say that they're surprised how much they came to care about each other, you know, when essentially they started out as strangers and they weren't really ever sure where it was going to go from there. Do you guys ever have to kind of knock yourself on the head and think, wow, this is amazing?
Well, it's kind of like what I said about how I perceive Ashley. If, you know, something were to happen, or, you know, good, bad, whatever, it's not, oh, something happened to Aiden's birth mom. It's like, you know, it's like something happened to our friend, good or bad or whatever. Yeah.
That's very well put. Well, and we had a lot of people typing in here, just thank you guys so much for sharing your story, and what a beautiful story. And I just hope for all of those in the audience tonight that you could hear their story and just understand that this may not be how your adoption goes. As many of you have heard, we've had a lot of stories this year, and every story, you know, they may have similar things or things in common, but every adoption is just so unique, and I think it is just because what we've seen here tonight is that it's a relationship, and every relationship, whether you're blood related or you've grown up with each other or you just meet for the first time and you've only known each other for a few years, they're all going to be different. There's going to be times when you're more in touch than others, and other times when you're maybe a little more distant, and through the ups and downs, but that the possibilities are, you know, anywhere from at least knowing your child's history to knowing where your child is being raised, all the way to what you've heard tonight, you know, if that's where your adoption unfolds. So I hope that all of you were able to see something here tonight through Ashley and Gina that maybe you hadn't thought about before, or that has reaffirmed your desire, you know, for open adoption. And if any of you have questions, if you're thinking, well, I need more information, or how do I prepare, you can always ask Lifetime, and we'll be happy to help you with anything that we can. You can contact us through lifetimeadoption.com, or you can email me. My email is Libby, Libby, at lifetimeadoption.com, or you can call our office for adoptive parents. It's 530-432-7373. And if you're considering adoption as a birth parent, you can dial our toll-free hotline. It's 1-800-923-6784. And I just want to thank you ladies again for joining us tonight and for your photos. These were very fun to look at. We had a lot of comments about how sweet they were. Thank you both. Thank you both for being here tonight.
Thank you, and I hope that we've helped somebody in some way.
I think you did. I've seen several people typing back to me, just thank you so much. Very encouraging, very informative. So no, you guys were great, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you and hearing how things go with your job hunt, Ashley. And we wish all of you very best. And then for those of you on the line, we have another webinar tomorrow night. Actually, tomorrow afternoon, excuse me, that we're going to feature one of Lifetime's staff. She was adopted, and she is going to come on and share her story and how she grew up now that she is an adult, and talk about what it was like to grow up knowing her adoption story and what she wishes everyone would think about when they think about adoption. So I hope that if you don't yet have that, you can go to Adoption Teleconference